Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, and I am here, and this is Spirit Cafe, and we are really excited to have you join us today. Spirituality to me means a great deal, and there's a very specific meaning about what spirituality is. And to me, spirituality has nothing to do with ritual or dogma or any of that thing. Spirituality is how we live our life and how we experience our life, and specifically how we live it, though, how we go through life and how we experience things. And when you're going through your life and you're experiencing things, you often run into people who become your friends. And friendship, to me, is one of the most spiritual things in the world, because it is coming straight from yourself to a person. And I am a very lucky man today, because I have two people who I met and had instant bonds with on the show, on with us today. The first, of course, is my lovely co-host, the lovely Tamara Zoner. How are you today, Tamara?
I'm wonderful. How are you, John?
Well, yes, you are. You wouldn't be my friend. I'm doing great. I think friendship and spirituality walk hand in hand. And I think that if more people would befriend the world, then we would have a better world. But today, Tamara, I get to introduce you to Ephthemius Lazarus Gouvas. But there are those who call him Tim. Tim and I have been best friends since we were 5 years old. Now, I want to share a little bit about the friendship with Tim that I think is so extremely special and extremely rare. I've known Tim since I was 5. I cannot remember an argument with Tim. I cannot remember ever having an argument with Tim. It's one of those things that just doesn't happen. You know, we each get busy in our lives, and there were times in our lives where we weren't necessarily as prevalent in each other's lives, but there was never a point where we had an argument or a disagreement, and that I remember. Well, I'm sure maybe we did. Who knows? But I don't remember them because they're not important. And we kind of have a gentleman's agreement that we don't apologize to each other, because there's no need, because we can't offend each other. So I think it's really interesting. So Tamara, here is my good friend Tim. Tim, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Hello. Nice to meet everyone again.
Tim, why don't you, before we delve into this whole concept of friendship and spirituality, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and anything else you want to say about this friendship of ours?
Well, my name is Tim Gouvas. Well, what have I been doing? I'm a pizza maker since I can remember. Restaurant business. My family has always been in the town of Rehoboth Beach since my great uncle. Let's see, I don't know the true facts. It's either 1917 or 1927, but either way, he came to Rehoboth Beach in those days. He started a small restaurant. My father showed up in 1956 when he was 16 years old. Started his little empire, worked, his way up the ladder from dishwasher to waiter to small restaurant owner. In 1960, he bought the restaurant from my great uncle. And then in 1974, he opened up Louis Pizza. I was 9 and a half then. 13 years old, I became full-time schedule. I worked other jobs throughout my life, but pretty much I was there doing that. I went to college. I was an engineer for a while. And that's, eventually ended up there. But the important part, John Davis and Tim Gouvas. That was an interesting, I don't know, I don't have the memory that you do, John, but I remember key parts of our friendship, like running around in Thompson's Island, doing just things that I look back on our friendship and the things that we had, like environment wise, a lot of kids didn't have that.
No, like what? Like what? Like what?
I think our environment, all right, most kids didn't take advantage of, or maybe they did. I don't know. We were a group of young people who took everything that the end of Delaware had to offer. Think about it. You had three ways. You had the ocean. You know what I mean? You went, what is it? South, north, and west. You couldn't go east because it was the ocean.
Right.
So I always attributed that to why everybody was stagnant in Delaware. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Yeah, I do know.
Not being able to do, and the young people not finding things to do, getting mixed up in bad things. We never did.
We never
bad
did.
Kids. And we always found ways to keep ourselves occupied. We were adventurous and engaged. Thank you. That's the word, engaged. And it wasn't just us two. There were other friends.
Yeah.
We had, but we kept it going. And like you said, there were times when, I went off to college, we kind of lost touch. Right?
Right.
But there was keep never in touch though.
Yeah, we'd see each other at your store or whatever.
Things like that.
You were always working. I was
always working. Yeah, and those were the years where I got heavily into the restaurant and mixed up in my own family politics and things like that. But yeah, and then when I think it was when you ended up in Ohio that we started getting back together.
Well, it was a little bit
before that.
A little bit before that, but really, when I got to Ohio, it was just when it became a much more into it again, because it was like we were always very good friends. We always we'd always laugh every time we see each other. This is the thing that I remember about our friendship, especially in our 20s. We'd get together and we'd walk up, and the first thing that would happen is we'd smile and we'd laugh, and sometimes we'd smile and we'd laugh with there being no reason. Right? We'd walk up and be like, ah! All right. Even today, I call you up on the phone, you're like, what's up? Right? Hey, Tim, what's up? Right? And I'll say, how you doing, my brother from a Greek mother? And that's the way our friendship is, right?
John, you're the only person that can make me laugh. I laugh. I laugh, but very, very little, very little.
And it's the same, and like I remember like in our 20s, and at your house on Brooklyn Avenue, we'd go over there and we'd have, for those of you who are listening, yes, in those days I drank a lot. And Tim and I would drink and we
were sowing our oats, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know, but we had so much fun. I remember like the cameras came out and we started just joking around in front of the cameras, and we had so much fun. It was just fun. The thing about spirituality and friendship, though, to me is spirituality to me is based in feeling and emotion. And when I think of Tim Gouvas, I get nothing but positive. I get that feeling of, this is wonderful. I love Tim, right? And in spirituality, deep spirituality, especially if you think about it from a Christian perspective, the Apostle John, who, by the way, amazing author, wrote the little statement that said God is love, right?
Right.
Well, I love my friend Tim to death, right? To the point where every so often I'll actually say it in Greek to him, sagapo, right? I'll actually tell him that. Because that's the feeling that's kind of that you engender, that friendship. And to me, that's very spiritual. Now, Tamara, she has her best friends that she hangs out with. And it's funny when you look at the stuff online of Tamara and her best friends, the picture is always of them laughing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So Tamara, how does friendship and spirituality tie together for you?
It is so hand in hand. There's growth, right? The spiritual growth of a true friend who's willing to ask you the hard questions and keep you accountable in facing yourself and living your truth. the real friendships are those people who are willing to say, hey, you're not showing up how I know you want to in your life. What's up? And so that
which means, Tamara, that you have become a real friend, because you smack me with a cosmic 2x4 all the time.
I think we were real friends before we met. So and there too is the spiritual aspect, because I believe that we travel with spirits throughout lifetimes, and maybe as we're just little souls and balls of light, wherever we hang out between skins, we decided, hey, this is how I'm going to show up for you this next time around. And so don't forget, because I'm going to be that person who immediately asks you the tough questions, even though we'll hardly know each other in this life, we'll know each other. So, and I feel like the people that I've been closest to are those people. Like, I know for sure I've known them before and maybe forever. And with that level of deep knowing and intimacy that occurs in those relationships, laughter is the default. It's like a waterfall, right? Because you know each other, you can laugh at each other, with each other, for each other. And it's all wrapped up in spiritual growth.
Right. I completely agree. I think
that's recently happened to us, John.
What?
Spiritual growth. More so for me from you.
Oh, really? No,
didn't you see that in our conversations
dude,
maybe the past year?
I talk spirituality all the time, so I don't necessarily, I'm always oblivious about it.
But you are. But as far as it, for me, I don't want to say it's brought our friendship closer.
Well,
but it definitely has changed. Oh, has it changed the friendship?
Changed the dynamic?
Dynamic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely has changed the dynamic a little bit.
Has it been a positive experience?
Oh, this is what I'm saying. Positive, all over the place. Things are just, yeah, absolutely. So much so that I'm kind of spreading the word. I try without, I'm hitting people that would never, that I sense there's a spiritual, you know what I mean? You just kind of, I have, and I'm not trying to brag here, 47 years of thousands of people coming to that counter, and I'm interacting with human beings constantly. And if I have not gotten some sense of being able to connect and sense people, I have this ability. I don't know where I get it from, but I don't want to say I judge them, but you get this sense of people from years and years of seeing them and talking to them and engaging them. And I'm not this typical little teenager. May I help you?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, Tim,
I engage people.
One of the things that was interesting was that earlier on in this conversation, we talked about being empathetic and empathy. And there's this spiritual thing that is bandied about called being an empath. And I think that we all are empaths on some level, because everybody who listens to this podcast knows that they can walk into a room where a fight just happened and they can feel it.
Yes.
There's a sense, right.
Yes.
And so that is being an empath. That is experiencing your empathetic response. And there's clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience. Clairaudience, hearing,
right. Clairvoyance
seeing,
right?
Clairsentience is knowing, right? And I often wonder whether there is another one that's out there that's more emotionally based. I don't even know what you would call it, but because I think that a lot of times we access things from emotions. I know, like they walk up to your counter and you feel how they are, right?
I believe I can now. I have.
Oh yeah. I walk out in the audience. And I can pick the perfect person to come on stage with me.
That's right. We talked about that.
Yeah. I can walk out and I can go, that person is timid and is afraid to come up on stage, and so I grab that person, I bring them on stage and break them out of that barrier. So there is that matter of empathy. Now Tamara over there, you know, she makes a living at this, you know, she goes out there and you know, a life you love now is all about, you know, working with people who don't have that. So she's constantly dealing with that, right, Tamara?
Well, in a way, I think that everyone has the capabilities. And what I do is help people tune into themselves. And so, tune into what they truly want to live and experience instead of accepting the pre-programmed path of life or parents. And so, what you're describing is just this sense of feeling into other people, and that is another ability, right? That
Maybe
empathic
it's not
ability.
something that I developed. Maybe it's something that I've always had.
Definitely. That has developed over time just with the amount of interactions with other people that you've had. You've honed it without even realizing it.
Not realizing, and you know, and how can I put this? It's not challenging when I do it. I embrace that ability to take, say, for example, a customer who walks into the restaurant already angry and miserable for some reason, where another cashier who doesn't care, because I have those cashiers, they're there just for the paycheck, would engage that customer and cause an argument, cause some sort of, where I immediately extinguish that anger through some way of the way I say, may I help you, or how may I help you, or if that person has a problem, fixing the problem.
Right.
And I do that very well in my restaurant. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm 6'3", very intimidating. Could be anything. I don't know. But
you two must be a pair walking down the street, huh?
But I have been told by my employee, especially I have this one who works the grill. She says, she came out of the blue, and she says, "You're a very kind soul."
Yeah.
I took that as a compliment, and I said,
"You should."
Thanks. That's what I want to be. That's the kind of person that I want to be. I want someone. I don't like to be an intimidating person. In fact, sometimes I hate being this tall, big guy. I want to be just, me, and put myself out there, and I want people to,
You just hit on it perfectly.
What was that?
That is spirituality. Just being you. Tamara talks all the time about being your authentic self. Living who you are and being the person that you are. That's really key.
Tamara, that's who I got that from. My father. All my life, I used to get these little blurps. Son, you can be anything you want to be, just put your mind to it. That was one. Son, never be anybody other than yourself.
Okay. I'm going to throw something in here, Tim, just because I want to, and if you're okay with this, if you're not okay with this, I can edit all this out. But
no, I'm okay with it.
You just said that you got that from your father, but I know full well, because you're my best friend forever.
Yeah.
I know full well that your father and Louis Pizza limited you from doing the things that you wanted to do.
Exactly. But he encouraged me to do things that I wanted to do. Now, here's the thing. Somehow in that dichotomy of fearing him or respecting him or not being able to break away from there and listening to those lessons, I should have listened to those lessons and stood on my own 2 feet and got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
It's interesting because when I look at the dynamic between you and your father is an amazing man, amazing man.
Absolutely.
And much like you, everybody loves Louis, and there are other people down there who aren't loved nearly as much as Louis, and we'll keep them nameless. But Louis comes out and everybody's like, Louis, and they're like, well, Louis, and they're like, no, he
let's
sits out.
take a picture with you and all
yeah,
that stuff.
Yeah. And you have that sort of same energy. But what's really interesting is your father worked hard for everything he ever had. And
Yeah.
I mean, he worked really hard. He had a very blue collar mentality of, well, you got to work. Now he's in his 80s and he still comes in and helps make pizzas occasionally or whatever. Right.
But
Right.
he encouraged me never to get involved in that business.
Did he really?
For years, he was like, don't do what I do.
Wow.
You don't want to be this. He says, you need to, he goes, get your education. Be something better than me. He always said, be better than me.
Mhm.
You know, get something, a professional job. Because in those days, we don't forget how old we are, right? He used to say it was being professional, doctor, lawyer, engineer. And what he would.
Can I throw something at you? Just because I'm.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm sure he did everything you're saying. I want to throw this at you just to see what you say. So I have a firm belief in spirituality that there's a polarity, there's love and there's fear, right? And your father was very encouraging to have you go be a doctor, be a lawyer, be something professional.
Well, I'm more an engineer because I was
Right.
leaning towards mechanics and
Okay.
building
Well,
things.
whatever it was, he was, some professional life.
Right.
But you felt a responsibility to his legacy and Louis Pizza. I mean, you
not in the beginning.
Okay, yeah, don't go there yet. I'll bring you back to it. All right.
Okay.
So, what I'm curious about was your drive towards that legacy and preserving that legacy because of the child inside who wanted acceptance from the father? Was that because of?
No, I didn't need acceptance from my father because he accepted me.
Okay,
pretty
Was
much.
it because of fear?
Kind of no. Wait. Now that I think about it, I think what I wanted to do was go in a different direction. My true self wanted to go somewhere else. And I was too afraid to go in those directions because in those days, those directions were few and far between. Directions like Hollywood.
Uh-huh.
Well, there was no acting, prop making.
Yeah.
What happened was a man showed up at the house, a Greek man from California, friend of my mother's.
Pappas?
No, I can't remember his name. Was huge.
Greek.
Worked for Paramount Studios. I'd come home. This was back in the 80s. I come home from school, and here's this guy. My mother introduces me as a friend of hers from Greece who immigrated and everything. He's a short little Greek guy. And he's talking and talking and talking. And my father doesn't like him because he's a dreamer. And he went to Hollywood trying to be an actor, didn't make it as an actor, and ends up working as a mechanical effects engineer for Paramount Studios because he was a carpenter. And he sees me, I boom, gravitate towards him like a magnet. I mean, I just, as soon as he told me what he did, so he starts talking, and my eyes are like, and he tells me about then, it was after, let's see, he had done the Star Trek movies in the 70s. So he says, get this book. He tells me about this book that inspired him, some book of Hollywood and prop making. And I went and got the book from the library, and I was all like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go become a prop maker and all this stuff. But somehow it just didn't pan out because I couldn't find any schools. I couldn't do this. I wasn't being encouraged. So there you go. You're right.
Right. So, and I think that when you look at that story you just told, your father didn't like the guy because he was a dreamer.
And I remember those words. Don't be a dreamer. Don't be a dreamer. Keep your feet solid on the ground.
Dream killer words.
Yeah. Tam, what do you think about that concept of don't be a dreamer?
Well, I think it's a bunch of baloney. Be a dreamer.
Thank you.
Definitely dream and dream big. This is what, John and I were just talking about as I took him through his passion test, and we talked about on the last episode. Like, this is where you get to define what you want your life to look like in your heart of hearts, like full out living your absolute grandest dreams and desires, because that's what they're freaking put in your heart for.
You think
They're
great
there
things are
because
created,
you're meant to
right?
express them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's never too late, gentlemen.
No.
Okay,
Here's
Tim,
the funny thing.
Tim, you just get hit by the
Here-
cosmic 2x4 as well.
I got it. I love it. And here's the
she's-
funny thing. You know what? She just said it's never too late. Guess who's saying it's never too late? My parents.
Really?
They're, oh, it's never too late. You can go get married again and have kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't say no. I'm not negative to anything. Anything's positive.
I think Tamara. One of the things that I'm looking at my future. That one of the things that's really kind of fun is I'm always gravitating towards things that I enjoy and love, as we all are. And I want to go back to Rehoboth and spend time with my buddy Tim and make really cool stuff. And we started playing around with the idea of, and not playing around, it's actually in motion, creating another YouTube channel called Old Farts Workshop. And I started building up all kinds of interesting things for that. But the idea is that we'll make really cool props or things that are really unique and start to do those things. And, it oftentimes when you're, it's never, quote unquote, it's never too late. Oftentimes it's the motion of doing, it's the putting things into action that brings around the thing that takes you to the next place. So right now I'm going through a big quandary myself about spirituality. I have made a living for quite some time as a corporate speaker, and in many ways, never the twain shall meet. Corporate speaking and spirituality is something that doesn't necessarily jive together very well.
But you never know.
Exactly. And they do jive together perfectly within John Davis.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you are the force that brings them together?
Well, it's interesting about that.
In the future.
Years ago, I had a reading from a very, very amazingly gifted psychic named Atira Hatton. And Atira, actually, she's one of the very few certified Association for Research and Enlightenment psychics, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, the Association for Research and Enlightenment is the Edgar Cayce Foundation.
We talked about this.
Yeah. And in her first reading with me, she actually said that you're going to be bringing spirituality into the workplace. Now, in my personal opinion, that's what I've been doing for a decade, because I've been bringing spirituality into the workplace, but I haven't been framing it as a spiritual concept. I've been using the spiritual concept and framing it in corporate vocabulary and changing perspectives that way. But I'm feeling drawn to flip that, but I'm feeling less drawn for going into corporations now. And I'm feeling more drawn to reach a broader audience with the spirituality, but in a much more authentic, real, and relaxed way.
Okay.
Does that make sense at all?
Yep.
Completely.
So what I'm feeling right now is that I got to kind of set some of the corporate stuff aside to do that. And, I go into companies and they're like, okay, we're rolling out our new code of values. And I go in there and I formulate a program around their code of values. Or I spoke recently for a nuclear energy company. I went in and I talked about change and how they have to, take their own ownership. Now, meanwhile, I am talking about inner power and how things are manifested into your life and how you create your experience and how you connect. And it's the same thing in our friendship. It's like how you and I come to each other and present our own power, right? I call up my buddy Tim, and it's really kind of funny. You and I get on the phone, and next thing you know, 3 hours has gone by.
That's right.
And we come to the end of our conversation. It's just like, all right, this is kind of going too long. Right? We kind of like peter out. We're like, all right, I'll talk to you later. And
Right.
you can always tell when we're coming towards the end of the conversation. It's like, one of us will say, so what else is going on? And that's like, okay, conversation done.
Right. I want to let the listeners know that this will not be 3 hours. So. I also want to say too, John, that, and for both of you, you get to define whatever you want to do looks like. And the reason those conversations between the two of you are so easy and hours pass, like time stills, right? And actually expands around you, because you're showing up as the truest versions of yourself with each other, because it's safe to, because you know each other, because that's the relationship that you've created, most likely lifetime after lifetime. Right. And it's
definitely lifetime after lifetime.
It's within the safety of that spiritual friendship that you have, that you're able to explore these ideas of, what I really want to do though is this. And then you have that built-in encouragement for each other as well.
Yeah.
Partners in growth
crime
and spirituality and friendship. And you always say crime, but it's not. It's freaking love, and not like love, but
right.
Partners in deep friendship, love.
Yeah, and that is the honest to God truth. I mean, it's Tim and I have a friend who, when we were young, we were all like the Three Musketeers, and as time has gone by, that other friend has really gone a different path, and gone down a path that I don't think Tim, I don't want to speak for you. I don't think Tim and I can go down that path with him, because he's really gotten into, to put it bluntly, he's gotten into the spirituality of Trump. And he's gone down that vein of conspiracy theories and hate and anxiety and it's, he wears the hat and he has the t-shirt and he does the whole thing, and Tim and I at least for me, I can't relate to that, because and I don't think it's necessarily my responsibility to try to change him, because that's what his choice is, right? But I think it's completely a spiritual choice to let him go on his way. Mm-hmm. Because you can't change, everybody's life is their own choice. And if that's his authentic self, God bless him. Let him go off and do that. And unfortunately, it'll probably lead him to a very bad place. But it's not your responsibility to change somebody like that. And with Tim and I, we've never had the desire to change each other. We just accepted each other for who we are. And that's what friendship is. And, friendship is an interesting thing. Tamara and I, okay, so and you've heard, anybody who's heard this podcast before, that this is how Tamara kind of met and I kind of met. I was speaking at an event, and Tamara walked in the room and she electrified the room. I mean, she walked in, and everybody in the room, I was in the room and it was completely quiet. It seemed like it was like a little prison. It was all dark and dingy. And all these people were in the room and they were being completely quiet, like they were in a church. And Tamara walked in the room, and I watched everybody in the room smile. I watched everybody in the room start to engage her. I watched her engage everybody. I watched her change the room. And so there was that feeling there. Now, when later on, when I bumped into her picture on LinkedIn, I asked her to come on an interview. I had no idea what I was doing right at that time. I didn't realize how cursed I was going to be. I'm kidding. Or cursed at maybe. But that first conversation was like so free and easy. And that is a rare thing to find in life. Someone who you can expose very vulnerable parts of yourself. And what happened with Tamara on our very first conversation, I exposed like really big, vulnerable things about myself that I wasn't sharing with much of anybody. And I definitely was not sharing it purposely.
Mhm.
And yet I met someone who I felt so completely comfortable with. And that to me is number one, a testament to you, Tamara, for being that person.
Thank you.
But I think it's also a testament to, you know, living my truth sometimes means meeting somebody who forces you, or not necessarily, forces a bad word, that elicits the truth
Mhm.
from you. That's a better way to say it. You know,
Well,
you
and
meet so,
allows and it frees the truth from you,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. And
where
so,
you almost feel compelled. And I think that 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 word vulnerability is so vital for these kinds of deep friendships, because if we're not willing to show up vulnerable, we cannot form the intimate relationships that we're all truly seeking. If we want to stay safe, we stay shut down. And then we don't get to have access to the spiritual growth that we can when we are connecting on that level and saying, hey, I feel like this is a different kind of friendship. This is something special. And I get to be all of me here. And then we practice that within the safety of these
mhm.
relationships. And that's what allows you to then take one step further and say, ooh, I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable in this bigger, broader circle. Or, hey, maybe tomorrow when I'm having a conversation with another podcast interviewer, I'm going to be even more vulnerable and share things I haven't shared in the public eye in decades. I don't know. Could be something like that, John. What do you think, Tim?
I see. I understand. It's funny. All this is happening to me with you, John, lately. I'm sharing more with you.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
I
you and
have
I,
been.
have been getting into some real deep stuff lately, and
Yeah.
not only, and it's really interesting because not only is it about spirituality, and I know that I've kind of become your Wikipedia for spiritual thought, because my brain grabs a hold of facts and I kind of stick them in there. You're like, what do you think of this? I'm like, blah blah blah, right? So you're like, which is great.
Well, what's happening is, well, Tamara, you have to understand. Up until now, well, maybe I have never, that I can recall, had any kind of spiritual. What would you call it, John?
Base,
Or I've never had an out of body
foundation.
experience. I've
Oh,
never
okay.
um,
Spiritual experiences.
experiences. I'm not saying I don't believe in them or anything like that, but up until recently, I came to the conclusion that most of my life, I used to say I have a terrible memory. I don't remember anything. I don't remember my childhood very well. I don't remember things I did with John in my 20s and 30s. Is it that I don't remember? Or is it that I'm blocking something? And not only am I blocking these memories, but spiritually I'm blocked as well. So all of these things that I might have had an out of body experience at 13, 14, 12, 20, I just blocked it. Just like somebody blocks a bad experience in their life, traumatic, right? I don't know.
Or if you're
Or,
open to a different perspective, maybe you simply live very mindfully. And then the retaining those things doesn't really matter. It's that you're in this present
oh,
moment always,
always. That's a,
which is a gift,
which
frankly.
is a
So you don't
gift.
remember it because you were just there for that moment in the
That would
now.
explain a lot of things. I've always considered myself lucky, right, John?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Always.
unbelievable. Not lucky in gambling. I don't gamble, but when I get taken to gambling places, terrible luck all the time. But in life, money, I run out of it. The next day, it just appears. But I don't do the affirmations that John has done in the past. I must go through something similar naturally.
I don't think you need to go through the affirmations if you truly believe you're lucky.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, you have a deep belief already. You just a knowing.
Yeah, affirmations are to change your belief. Whereas if you already believe it, then you're already going to live it. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned in life was that.
So certain things about me, I truly believe.
Yeah. And if you believe you're limited, or
you're
if
going
you
to be
believe,
limited.
and if you believe things are going to go bad with a business, and if you believe that you're going to have a struggle with, business partners, those things are going to come true too, because that's your belief. And so you need to look at the idea of what it is you're truly believing. And now what's really great about our friendship is that we can have these kind of conversations, and there's not a response of defensiveness, because anything I'm saying about anybody is coming out of love for you. Right. And so there's never I need to defend this or I need to argue against that, because it's just a discussion for us as a friend.
Exploration. I love that so much. That's what I feel with my two best friends. We explore concepts. No one gets defensive, so we can challenge each other, but it's really exploring deeper layers of feeling and emotion and thinking.
Oh, that's what I love about John. I can sit there and say, this popped into my head, and what does it mean? And he could say it's just a thought, maybe.
And Tim does the same. You do the same for me. I'm like, like during this whole moment where I'm talking about big changes in my life and things that different directions. What did I do? What did I do? I contacted Tim and Tamara and Holly, my friend Holly as well, and my sister Patty, right? And I talk it through with the people who mean the most, who I trust the most, who I believe that I'm not going to be judged by, right? And that is a spiritual safe place. Now, the interesting thing I will say, you talked about the idea of not having had spiritual experiences, but you described a spiritual experience in this podcast. People walk up to your counter and you just know. You get that
feeling. Even think about that.
That is a spiritual thing. Spirituality is there's an interesting word. The word spirituality conjures up things in people's minds.
Okay.
Now, you say spirituality, some people think monks and incense, right? And some people think Catholic Church, or some people think, all kinds of different things. Spirituality is how you live in your body with a broader reach or broader perspective, right? And it's not about dogma or guilt or, singing this hymn. It's about who you are at your core and how you live your life in unison with what Tamara and I would call the yada yada, right? The universe,
the yada yada,
right. It literally is, walking down the street is a spiritual thing if you are aware. But if you're walking walking through your life focused on how bad things are and you're not in the moment. You're focused. You're out of your timeline. And spirituality is a very present thing. You've got to drop yourself into a very present space. And what I find really interesting is I look at your life, Tim, and as long as I've known you, you should have been a prop maker. I mean, you've been making props since we were a child. And it used to piss me off because we'd go out to Thompson's Island and we'd find the sassafras tree that the vine grew around that created a spiral trunk. And we each pick out one. And I'm like, all right, I got one. And then I look over and Tim's got one that's better. And I'm like, Tim's so we end up trading. And then I get my trade and I look over and Tim's got one that's better. Because I know, not because of the fact that Tim's is better, because I hear what Tim's saying about the thing in his hand. he's going, well, I can do this, I can do that, I can create this. And the difference was mine became a club for a Viking character that I did called Darien the Barbarian. It was a giant club. Tim's became Merlin's staff with copper tips and snakes, and it was it was like the most amazing frigging thing in the world.
I still have it.
Right.
Fabulous.
And
That's
mine,
creative engineer.
right, and mine was a club because I didn't have I didn't have that. That's not who I am. Of like building upon this thing, I wrapped some leather around the other end and made a baseball bat that had a twirled end. Right, right. But that's Tim. That's who you are. You authentically are someone who makes cool shit. Pardon my French people on this podcast, because we all know French people cuss a lot. But when I look at you, when I look at you, it's who you have always been. You've always been that person who always has the coolest. I mean, Tamara, I know in other podcasts I've talked about how life-changing Renaissance festivals were for me, and how they brought me out of my shell. And this man right here is the man that took me to my first Renaissance festival.
Yeah.
And this man, not only did he take me to my first Renaissance festival, he informed me that I was going to be wearing a costume.
Good
Right?
friend. Yeah.
Right, totally. And he put me in a Viking costume, and I went in, barbarian costume. We called it barbarian, but it was definitely very Viking looking. But it ended up being one of the biggest life-changing things for me, because it broke. I had, as you and our listeners know, I had a very emotionally abusive father who was, he didn't like me. And going to that Renaissance festival changed the trajectory of my life, because I suddenly got tons of positive reinforcement and then it led me to meeting some of the most influential people in my life, which then took me to 30 countries and, doing all kinds of things. I even on my spiritual journey, all my biggest spiritual experiences happened at Renaissance festivals. I mean, when we did our remote viewing episode, and I was focused on the most influential place in my spiritual journey, and Tamara's owner starts describing the campground at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. And then for those of you who listened to that episode, and you should go back and listen to it, because it's really interesting watching Tamara remote view for the very first time.
I'm not even thinking that I could do this. I was like, you're crazy, John.
But what was really interesting is during the episode, she's describing this stuff, and she keeps mentioning this circus tent. And I'm like, yeah, there's tents up the hill during the festival. And then after the episode was over, I remembered that like right outside of that campground, behind the campground, was a circus tent that the elephants lived in during the week. And so, because they had elephant rides at the fair. So,
wow.
So she actually was spotting this circus tent that I wasn't necessarily consciously focused on. So, why did it even go there? But the concept of spirituality, and I think we live spirituality all the time. And I think that Tim, the people walk up your counter, you spot them. That is a spiritual event. Our friendship is a hugely spiritual experience, right? Because of the fact that it's more an experience than a choice. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
We just stay in the experience.
Well, and I think that's what Tim's doing. I think that you're a living spiritual experience, and so you don't need to strive for one.
I never thought of it that way.
It's really beautiful.
Wow.
And Tim, you sent me a picture a week ago of some cool thing you made. Right?
Yeah.
You're still making
I still make
stuff.
things. If it comes to mind and it hits me right, I make them. Yeah, I make things. I can't help it.
Yeah,
And you have lightsaber collections of things you've built, right?
I built those, yeah.
Yeah,
When I was bored and I felt like soldering, I got involved in making prop lightsabers.
That's the key.
Yeah.
When you got bored, right? When you got bored.
Boy, I
you,
didn't know he was
you, oh, I'm so bored. I think I'll make a series of lightsabers that are cooler than the ones in the movies. You know.
Kind of, yeah. That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
what
a
they were.
unique characteristic. Wow.
I'm so bored. What's interesting is bored. What is bored? Bored is an interesting word because
That's a
people.
whole other topic.
Oh yeah, and
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, because my
We only have 10 minutes.
Well, really like 5, because I do need to be able to find the link.
We'll kick out soon. Let me just say this one thing about boredom real quick. My ex-wife was in the Peace Corps in Cameroon, Africa, and they speak African French there.
Okay.
And in African French, they do not have a word that means bored because the pace is so slow there. You can't get bored. It's just slow. Right. It's very interesting. Anyway.
Awesome.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome?
I always tell my kids that boredom breeds creativity. And so it's a good thing.
Look at Tim.
Good, be bored.
Look at Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. And he does.
So Tim, it has been an absolute awesome experience having you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed this very much.
I just am so grateful to be able to be witness to your friendship. It's really beautiful. It's moving.
Oh, thanks. We'll have to have your best friend on next.
Oh, I keep asking them both.
Bring them both on. That'd be crazy.
Oh my gosh,
I'll be totally ganged up on.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you love it. They're kind of.
I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. As far as spirituality and friendship, I think friendship is spiritual, and I think friendship is based in spirituality because you can't be someone's friend truly without seeing their authentic self and being able to be your authentic self with them. So that is the essence of spirituality, in my opinion. What do you think about this, Tamara? And you want to take us out of this thing after that?
Absolutely. Unless Tim has any final words for today.
Yeah, Tim.
First.
Do I have any final words? Oh my gosh, I'm at a loss for words right now.
Oh my God, that's the first time in history.
I actually am at a loss for words.
Well,
I don't have.
By the way, anybody listening to this, if you're on the East Coast and you want the best pizza on earth,
oh, there we go. Plug.
Go to Louis Pizza. Plug. There you go. Now, let me tell you how good this pizza is. I told my son that we were going to buy a beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. I said, what's the most important thing about the location? He said, it's proximity to Louis Pizza. Right. This is the best pizza on earth. And so if you're in Rehoboth Beach, go get some pizza. See if Tim's there. Say hi to Tim, and your life will be changed. No pizza.
Yes, I will change your life.
Again. There you go.
I am definitely putting Delaware on my bucket list. Yeah, and that will be a gluten cheat day for me. All right. I just want to thank you both for sharing your friendship with Spirit Cafe. And it's been a pleasure and an honor discussing spirituality and friendship with you both. And such a joy to meet you, Tim. So very cool.
It's been a pleasure to meet you as well.
Thank you. So listeners, thank you so much for being here and sticking with us through another conversation that is at least interesting to us. We are glad to have you here, and we would love to hear your comments. And maybe if you're on our Facebook page or YouTube, tag your best friends who support your spiritual growth and let them know what they mean to you, because the only time we have is right now. We will talk to you again next week. See you then.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.